Okay.
Okay, are we ready, Ben? Yep. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for coming along to tonight's Education Skills and Employment meeting. Do we have any apologies for absence, Ben?
We have received an apology for absence from Councillor Philip Irwin.
Thank you. And the minutes of the meeting on the 4th of August 2022, can I sign them as a true and accurate record? Superb, thank you very much. And are there any declarations of interest?
No.
No, superb, thank you. So moving on to item 4, which is the performance and processing for the issuing of an educational healthcare plan, including the early help offer. Now, I know some of you might have seen this when it went to scrutiny a couple of months ago, I think it was. But I'd like to ask Nicola to present the report, please.
Oh, good.
Helen Redding.
Join the meeting.
So I don't know, Neil, do you want to do the introduction?
I do. Good evening, councillors. So my name is Neil Goddard. I'm the Assistant Director of Education, and thank you for receiving the report this evening. As Councillor Edwards has mentioned, the report that previously went to scrutiny has been circulated for your information, and I hope that's useful and provided sufficient information for you to have an understanding of where we are with lots of the issues that we're managing at the moment. But what we wanted to do this evening was do a brief presentation for you, if that's okay, that covers the issues for this subject, and then give you the opportunity to ask questions, because I think obviously that's the key element of this evening's meeting. If I can first introduce my two colleagues, Nicola Jones and Helen Redding, both of whom are leading different aspects of the work that we're doing around improving our services around SEND, and we'll present different aspects of the presentation that we're gonna show you. I think Nicola's just sharing, so we're getting ready to do that. If I can just do a brief introduction. Clearly, meeting the needs of children with special educational needs, additional needs, and support them as effectively as can is really important to us. And you'll be aware that we've been on an improvement journey to ensure that we can do that as effectively and as efficiently as possible to meet their needs, to meet their families' needs, and ensure our processes support them as effectively as we possibly can. There's a huge amount of work to be done. Nicola and Helen are really effectively leading different threads of that. But I know this will be something that comes to your attention as parents raise concerns about the processes, and I really hope that you will also see the positive work that we're doing and the impact of that, and the impact that that's going to have on children and people and their families as we move forward. Like I say, we start this process knowing that there are improvements to be made, knowing that we can do better, and in managing the data we can see those improvements moving through, but it is still a journey and something we're working really hard on. A key element of that is joint working. We want to work really closely with our colleagues from health and from other organisations, the Trust, and from the police and all those other organisations that support children and their families, and the co-production element, working with parents and the young people themselves to support the work that we're doing to ensure we have a co-produced outcome that's owned by both us as the local authority and the families themselves. So like I say, I'm going to hand over to, I think, Helen first to start the presentation to give you an introduction to the work that we've been doing. Like I say, we're going to try and go through this with some pace, because we know you'll have heard a lot of this, and you want to ask questions as we go through towards the end. So thank you for the opportunity to bring this to you. Like I say, I'll hand over to Helen, and like I say, all of us will be happy to answer questions once you've heard the presentation that we've got to give today. So Helen, I think over to you. Are you there, Helen?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, Helen, sorry.
Okay, sorry. I have trouble with the Zoom meeting on the laptop, so I'm on my phone now, so apologies for that. So Nicola, if you can move on to the slide 3 around co-production with parents and carers.
Yeah, we're on that.
Thank you. Because I can't see anything. Okay, as you've just heard, co-production with parents and carers is a really important part of our work. And if we don't get that right, then we tend to not get the provision right, and we get more complaints, etc. So the work that we've been doing over the last few months to engage with parents and embed the work with Parent Carer Forum around everything that we're doing around SEND has been a really important part of that journey. So we have now moved to a point where the Parent Carer Forum is working with us in all aspects of our SEND strategic work, which is really positive. And it's a huge commitment from parent carers who've already got very busy lives to help us shape services, shape provision, and tell us how it really is for parents, tell us what the lived experience of families is. We've worked very closely with Parent Carer Forum to address the issue that we've shared with you before around embedding co-production. What we'd found was that co-production was understood differently by different people. So we've worked together on that presentation, which we're very happy to share with you if that's helpful, to help explain what co-production means and why the voice of parents and carers is so important to our SEND strategic work and operational work. So we have worked with Parent Carer Forum and other partners to co-plan and run 2 workshops in Kettering and Rushden, where we had the opportunity to listen to the views of more parents and carers, as well as services that will help inform our SEND strategy in North Northamptonshire local area. We didn't have as many parents as we would have liked there, but we did have a number of new parents who were very engaged in the process. And we are building on that and now having regular opportunities to engage and re-engage with parents and carers to move the work forward together. One of the pieces of feedback that we received was that we needed to have that everybody signing up to what co-production means and the behaviours of co-production and working with families. So we have started to pull together a co-production charter that will be asking all services to sign up to, all schools, settings, etc., and also demonstrate those behaviours in every piece of work that they do. So we will be monitoring the implementation of that. So that's a work in progress. We are supporting Northamptonshire Parent Carer Forum to recruit more parents and carers to represent North Northamptonshire. So I have a meeting with them on Monday, where we are meeting new parents who put themselves forward to help us with that and to become part of North Northamptonshire's Parent Carer Forum. So we're very excited about that and looking forward to meeting new parents who can help us with our journey. We've also managed to get Parent Carer Forum, as well as partners, involved with the Teaching School Hub so that we can co-plan training for staff in schools around SEND. So children at SEND support, children with additional needs, not just those with an education, health and care plan. And that's a really important conversation to be having in terms of embedding SEN into all of the work that we do across all universal services, which schools are, so that we can improve the lived experience for children and families within our schools and within our settings. So that's an important piece of work, and we're in the early stages of those conversations and that journey. I think what's been positive for me is just seeing the absolute commitment from the schools in saying, yes, we want to do this, we want to partner with you, we want to make it better for children and families with SEND. So that's positive, but as I said, early stages. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Nicola? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Our journey of co-production with young people isn't as well established, and that's something that you tend to find nationally, that the work with parent carers has been in place over some time, but the work with young people, there is some examples of good engagement and good co-production with young people around individual services and service delivery, but it's not part of a strategic approach at the moment. We have started to work with the SEND-IS Young People's Advisory Group to collect and listen to their views, and they are an amazing group of young people who are very honest with their views about what works and what doesn't work, and what they think we need to do and what they think their schools need to do. So we've got continued engagement with them over the course of this term and next term. And we're going to be asking them to help us with developing a co-production charter with young people. We're going to be asking them to help us develop the new refreshed North Northamptonshire local offer website. So they're going to be engaged in lots of improvement work with us, which is brilliant. And they absolutely love taking part in those activities. Their teachers were saying that they get very excited when they have one of those tasks to do and are engaging with us. So that's really positive. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Nicola? Thank you. We've been working across agencies, including Parent Care Reform, in developing a multi-agency SEND data dashboard. And that's really important in terms of influencing our priorities and looking at the progress that we're making. We're not just looking at numbers. We also are feeding feedback into that multi-agency SEND dashboard so that we can collectively identify the issues and the trends, etc., and work out where we need to focus our attention. And we're checking that data and hypotheses with partners as we move through that. We thought you may be interested in a particular session in the future to just focus on the SEND data dashboard. We'd be very happy to set up a workshop with yourselves if that would be helpful to you. So please let us know if that would be useful to you. Can you move on to the next slide, Nicola? So we have been working, as I said earlier, in listening to partners, listening to parents, listening to young people to influence our developing local area SEND vision and strategy. So the workshop is influencing that, and we're pulling together all of the themes from those initial workshops, checking that we are undertaking the work that needs to be carried out to address the issues that were raised, and making sure that it influences our priorities going forward. Some of the parents that attended that said that they'd never been to anything like that before, and they did value it and enjoy it, which is good. And so we've asked them, can they bring some friends next time so that we can increase the influence of parents and carers on the work that we're doing in lots of different ways. They also fed back to us that they would like very flexible opportunities for engaging with parents and carers. And so we're looking with them at ways in which we can go out to parent groups that are already meeting so that we can get their feedback and their influence in the work that we're doing. So that's a work in progress. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Nicola? Thank you. Since March, we've been carrying out multi-agency quality assurance audits of education, health and care plans. Of learning, and that's been done in collaboration with parent carers from the Parent Care Forum and other partners. So we're pulling together the action plan to address the issues, and those actions will be embedded into service plans, not just our own service plans, but also our partner service plans. We have, as part of those actions, asked that anybody who is involved in advice writing carries out the Council for Disabled Children, which is an Council for Disabled Children's training on advice writing, which is a really good starting point for training and support for advice writers. But we're also planning at the moment with the DFE Regional SEND Group a multi-agency workshop to help really embed the learning from that QA process into the practice that we have right across the board across North Northamptonshire. So again, it's a work in progress, but it's moving in the right direction, and we're getting consistent messages around the quality. One of the things that we've identified is where there has been a family meeting, which is something that Nicola's services have introduced as part of the education, health and care process, that is improving the quality of the education, health and care plan at the end of the process. So that's something that we want to embed and learn from, and think about different ways of involving the family in that co-production of the education, health and care plan. The next slide, please, Nicola. It won't be a surprise to you, and I'm sure it's something that crosses your desks frequently, is one of the key messages that has come out is that we need to improve our communication. So we have been looking at lots of different ways in which we can improve our communication with partners, with our staff and with parent carers, Again, it's a work in progress, but we are absolutely determined to improve on the communication at an individual child and family level, as well as at a keeping people up to date and strategic level in terms of making sure that we are all working together on the same page and collectively improving outcomes. So that's the areas that I've mainly been involved in through the SEND Accountability Board, which is driven by Anne-Marie. The feedback through the SEND Accountability Board, which is well attended by partners, is that they are seeing the work progressing and moving forward. And we've had clear feedback from the DFE that they are happy with the progress made, but recognise that there is still significant work to do to secure improvements and maintain improvement. Should I hand over to you now, Nicola?
Yeah, I'm happy to, unless there's any specific questions, then I'll just move on, shall I? Chair, are you happy with that? Yeah, okay. So I think people will have generally seen the additional report that was circulated during August, which gave you some specific detail around some improvements around our EAP educational healthcare plan performance. That's when we assess a child who's got special educational needs, and then that decision to issue a plan. So we are making, and I think the headlines, as I've indicated here on this slide, is that you can see that we are improving our performance, and actually we've brought down considerably now the number of assessments that are out of time. But more widely across the service, we have also reduced significantly the number of children that were out of school and receiving home tuition. You see from the headlines there, that's now reduced to 4 children, which we're seeking to make sure that they get their educational needs met. And then we've seen some considerable improvements around the number of tribunals, so that is reducing, and we're expecting that that figure from 37 to 10 in August to reduce further during October and November. In relation, I'm going to just, so when we send the PowerPoint out, we will give you some additional information, which you'll see is on these slides, but I think time is of the essence, so we'll share the PowerPoint. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what our 3 key priorities have been in delivering the SEND services over the last 8 months. We particularly then focused on the early help, strengthening our early help model, and also then on reviewing and developing our specialist provision, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then making sure that the governance arrangements for when we're allocating specialist resources are effective and responsive. So in relation then to the first priority, trying to get I can see myself on the screen, so I can't see the full slide. So in our first priority, developing local provision, we've done considerable work around reconfiguring our specialist teams, so they now work across the 4 localities, and we will be working closely with the SENCOs and our school improvement teams, so our special educational needs coordinators, on a graduated approach. So we have there is some documents that we're working on that the West have also worked on. So we're wanting to make sure that everybody's clear about the graduated approach for our children with special educational needs. We've also provided for our mainstream schools each a SEND specialist service officer, and we will be launching in November. A lot of work been happening in the background with our special school Maple Fields and our mainstream schools Park and Wood Newton, and we'll be looking to launch the our social, emotional and mental health outreach support team. We've reconfigured our leadership teams, so they now have oversight of early help funding, That's funding for children with plans or with SEND support plans, and also they have oversight of the unit provision. We've also been working with health, and we're looking at how we can develop an early health team for occupational health and speech and language therapy. We've done significant work with our mainstream schools, again looking at what was known as the top-up funding, but we're calling it early health funding, to make sure that we've got a model that's going to work really effectively. And that has been a huge piece of work from the teams. And then we've also been working with the Senko locality working group to establish and focus on adapting the graduated approach guidance. So we've had a series of Senko locality meetings, forums. I think we're on our third forum with the team, with the schools. Have I moved on? Oh, it's stuck. Okay, so I'm just going to move on then. So our second priority, which we've been working on, has been around reviewing and realigning our current provision and our processes. So we've provided a sufficiency report, which has outlined the current pattern of provision for our specialist resources, and that's available. It covers short as well as medium and long-term priorities, and we've worked closely then with our schools, our special, mainstream and our key stakeholders to pull together some proposals, which means that we can further develop special school placements, as well as provision across mainstream units and satellites. And that we've also then developed the governance arrangements, which is how we actually make decisions and allocate resources. So I think over the last couple of months, we've now have in place all of those processes, and they're very much multi-agency led. So we have lots of agencies that come together and to make decisions around commission services. And we've also in the process of reviewing some of the formulas, the funding formulas that provides the payment to our specialist provisions. And then we are currently reviewing all our children in independent provision, so that then we can do a similar process for implementing robust monitoring processes. The third area then that we've been focusing on is about the governance for allocating and reviewing specialist provision, and also for our EAP educational healthcare plans. So we reviewed and developed a new operating model for our educational healthcare plans with the Special Educational Needs Support Service. And I think that you'll have seen from the previous report that what we're getting now is a much more effective and efficient assessment processes. The data tells us that things are improving, and as Helen alluded to it, that the quality assurance of those plans is also in hands as well. We've also developed and implemented specialist resource decision making groups, and that gives us the oversight, and it also gives us the monitoring for our specialist provision. So that is now in place, and over time that will be what we'll be implementing in the coming months. And then we have a quality assurance and reporting system. So this is, as Helen alluded to, how we monitor the performance, and then we celebrate what's working well, but also we have a continuous support and challenge process for those areas that need improvements. I think the one area that I was going to touch on in terms of our challenges, which I think will touch upon everybody's day job, we still have, so over the time I've been here, we've established that we have a number of children that are still awaiting a special placement. So it has been a long process to get us to the point where we know ourselves to that point. And so to address that, we've been doing some work around how we will focus ourselves on 36 children that we know are requiring a specialist placement. And we've been working with colleagues, including Rowan Gates, to put in place some satellite-based resource as an interim measure. And we've already identified 21 pupils to attend that. And on top of that, the work that we've done to develop up to what will be up to 173 new unit places, which will be spread over 8 school sites. And to roll that out, obviously that will take some time. We're currently in discussion with head teachers so that we can explore how we can enhance that so that we get some of that up and running by the end of this term. So I think that's a little bit of an update from us in terms of the position. So really it's whether there's any questions.
Superb. Thank you very much, Helen, Nicola and Neil, for that really comprehensive report. It is fantastic. And I really would like to acknowledge that the work that has been done, but also acknowledge that you understand that there is still a long way to go. And I think that's great that, that you acknowledge that, because there is still a long way to go. But, it's been a very good start to this, and there is a clear plan and a clear pathway to move forward for that. And I know your teams have been working exceptionally hard to get this done. So my thanks to you all for doing this. I can see Dorothy has got a hand up, or did have a hand up.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. I would like to know how many children from last year still need to be assessed, or have they all been done?
So I think so. We did have a backlog in the slides as I shared. We had a backlog at one stage of over 100 out of time assessments. So we've cleared the majority of those now. So that has been what we've been working on over the months.
So is that gone now? So you don't have anybody now?
Well, we do. The slide, I mean, it changes on a daily basis, but we are more or less down to a small number. I think when I wrote this slide, the PowerPoint earlier this week, it was around about 12. So, it is considerably less than what it was. And I hold performance meetings with the team on a weekly basis now. So we look at where there may be difficulties. For example, when we've and I have to say the responses now from the educational psychologists is very good in Northampton, but there was a challenge at one point around the timeless. So if you've got an area that's holding up and being able to complete the plan, then you've got to do the work behind that to make sure that we can get the plan out on time. So all of so we also have we follow that performance, and I have monitoring meetings with in that area too on a weekly basis.
Because without them being assessed, these children, the schools don't get the funding. Is that correct?
No, that's not actually. I think one of the things that the director and assistant director wanted to introduce was a model which I alluded to in the presentation for providing funding for mainstream schools without the need for a statutory assessment. So we have worked on that new model, and it was presented to the schools forum. And as from September, we've informed all our schools that they are now able to put an application in for early help funding. We have panels that meet across each of the 4 localities once a month, attended by head teachers as well as specialist services, my team, and that's how we're that's how we're planning, I think, to reduce the burden on having to go through a 20-week process to get some additional funding within schools. And I think schools have really welcomed that. But I don't know, Neil, if you want to add anything.
Very, very briefly, absolutely, we want to support schools. So the key foundation of everything we're trying to do is that we have inclusive mainstream schools. We know that pupils achieve the best outcomes when they're educated with their peers, as you would expect in a mainstream setting, but that some of those pupils will need additional help. And what we want to do is give schools the skills and confidence to manage those needs within the mainstream setting. But where a bit of additional support is needed, we want to give that, but only on a very targeted basis. The previous way that this was done was very broad. There was no specific outcomes that were expected from any money that was given. And now we want to be really clear about, you know, this child has got this need, this is what's needed, and so we'll fund that, and when that's complete we'll assess whether that's made, you know, a difference that will support them back into mainstream education. So we're being much more targeted and much more, I hope, intelligent with the delivery of, as you can imagine, is quite a significant amount of money for the council, but it's really important because if those needs were to escalate and we move into EHCPs or other things, you know, the costs only get greater from that point, and the outcomes for the children are not always as good. So like I say, the only thing the key message is we want to be really targeted with that funding to make sure that it's having the maximum impact that it can for the child, because it's the outcome of the child that's the most important thing around this, and supporting the school to deliver that.
And do they all have an education psychologist? These
so
children?
there are education psychologists who are involved in the development of EHCPs. Nicola's already mentioned that in terms of the advice they give in support of the EHCPs. And so given that we're considerably more up to date than we were, the education psychologists doing a great job in prioritising that level of work. There's always going to be a greater call on education psychology team than we're going to meet, and we have to look at how we, together with schools, manage that, because, you know, the value an education psychologist can add to the support for a child is really great. But, you know, we have to use our resources to meet our statutory responsibilities and support schools in accessing education psychology, whether that's through us or through another organisation, to support them in doing their work. So the education psychologist team are doing a great job. They're supporting the EHCP process, but like I say, there will always be demand on that service given the support that they can give to the breadth of children that they do. And like I say, the work they do is really valued by us, of course, but also schools and families.
Can I ask you then, do you think you need more money from NNC to support this?
Okay, so a lot of what we do is funded through what's called the Dedicated Schools Grant. Okay, so the funding of EHCPs is funded through a Dedicated Schools Grant. So that's not something the council can add money to. There are some regulations around that. So in terms of delivering EHCPs, that's where that's funded from. In terms of the support that we've had a lot of support in the work that Nicola's done in expanding the team that have supported the delivery of the EHCPs and the other teams that surround them. I think, you know, what we need to do, as Councillor Edwards spoke about earlier, you know, this is a journey, and we need to keep assessing that as we go along as to what support we need. But like I say, the actual delivery of the support, the money that we pass to schools, comes from the Dedicated Schools Grant, a ring-fence grant, and we're using that as effectively as we can. But like all local authorities in the country, there is pressure on that.
Could I just add it to that? Can I just add to that, Neil? Because I think one of the things that we're very conscious of is that if we get the early help model right, so, you know, we work with the school leaders to put as much resource around our mainstream schools, I think we'll have less pressure on currently what we're spending, which is on independent places. And lots of authorities have been in a similar situation to what we're in. So we just want to be really smart with how we invest in our local services. And one of the great things, I think, that one of the decisions that the director and assistant director made recently was that we would develop, for example, our social, emotional, mental health outreach teams. So that was something that was missing. And we didn't have that. So I think it's going to be looking at how we can invest in that earlier model, and that I think will mean that we can redirect some of the things that we're spending that are a lot more expensive.
An independent place, is that an independent school?
Yes.
And how many have we got there?
It was around about 170.
170.
Yeah, 170. Yeah.
So, and just to give a little bit of context to that, there will always be a need for independent specialist schools because some children will have very specific, very high needs that are identified that can only be dealt with through a very specific type of school, and we uneconomic to every local authority to have one, obviously. So there is always going to be a need for those. What we need to do, though, is a key element of what we're trying to do is educate these children, provide the services to these children, make sure they're given the opportunity to thrive as close to home as they possibly can. But there will always be a need for independent. But of course, it is at the expensive end of the spectrum, and so we only want to use that when we absolutely have to, and it's the right thing to get the right outcome.
And how many
Thank
special
you,
schools?
Neil.
Can I just ask one last question?
One more question, Dorothy.
Yeah. How many independent schools are there in the county, or are they out of the county?
Okay, so it's a mix. I mean, we can come back to you with the exact number. I don't, Nicola. I guess you wouldn't know that exactly. They're often referred to as out of area, or out of borough, or independent. There's all sorts of names, but some of them aren't out of. Some of them are within the bounds of the council. But we're very happy to give you that as a. Of course, it changes because we use different ones at different times. But for those ones I spoke about earlier, those very specific ones, they're quite likely to be out of area because they'll be regional and sat somewhere else. But there are, specialist schools, particularly around things like ASD and those sorts of things across the country. But like I said, I'm not sure we've got that figure off the top of the head, but happy to supply chair if that's helpful.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for that.
Can I just ask one question? Is it possible to have that booklet you sent out in August? You sent out a book which you had statistics in.
The paper, is it the?
Do you mean the presentation, Dorothy?
Yeah, the presentation, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's the presentation that went to scrutiny, isn't it? So we'll get it to you, Dorothy. Yes, no problem. Yeah. Leanne.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. You spoke at the beginning about co-production. I think it's quite interesting that at the end of that, you were talking about recruiting. I'm interested in how you're recruiting people, because actually I've met with quite a big group of SEN parents. So if the opportunity is still open, it would be great to have that conversation with you. Helen, I think it was you who spoke about that.
Yes, I'd be very happy to. Northamptonshire Parent Carer Forum were involved in the recruitment of new parents. If we've got ways of engaging more parents, we really want to do that. So I'd be very happy to have a conversation with you outside of this meeting, if that's helpful.
Yes, please. That would be lovely.
Thank you.
Sorry, just looking through. You spoke about giving a talk to us on the Send Data dashboard. That would be really interesting to be part of. So I hope either it will come to this meeting or be outside of that, please.
It will come back to this meeting, Leanne.
Okay, that's lovely. In terms of just a comment that came out from Neil just a second ago about independent schools being expensive. Indeed, they are, but outsourcing is quite expensive nonetheless. And with the new, I think it was a green paper or white paper, forgive me, I read two at a time. We could become our own local authority multi-academy trust. So it is within the realms of our gift to potentially look to build our own instead of just handing out money to other providers. So could that be considered by you yourselves and the director, please?
Okay, so when we talk about independent schools, we're not talking about academies. Okay, so academies sit within the state sector sector. Okay, so if we were to have our own multi-academy trust, which, as you say, the school's white paper enables us to do,
Right.
And I have to say we have expressed an interest in, an early interest, but we've expressed an interest in, that would mean, you know, the schools, a number of the maintained schools there might become academies, but under a local authority run multi-academy trust. The independent schools we're talking about in this instance are those run in the main by third sector organisations, I have to say. So you might get, I don't know, one of the autism charities, or you know, the visually impaired charities, or those sort of things, running a specialist school with very specialist provision. And we're talking about those, you know, and to run one of those, because of the number of children that we would individually as a local authority place in them, would not be economic. And so, you know, they're like I say, they're regional and serve a number of local authorities for some very high level needs. Now, there are some that provide a level which is equivalent to some of our special schools. And our special schools, as you may know, in North Northampton, we're really proud of them. They're great. They're you know, they're outstanding, good and outstanding schools, but they're very full. Nicola spoke about our creation of new places, whether that's through a satellite provision from a special school or a unit and a mainstream school. And so if we can not use the independent provision that provides a level of service that could otherwise be provided in a special school within North Northampton, clearly that's what we want to do. But at the moment, you know, like I say, they're really good, but very full. I mean, that's what we're trying to manage in terms of creating additional places. But the academy issues is slightly separate to that. And some of our special schools are very effective academies, and we work very well with them. And the cost there in academies is no different from a cost in a maintained school. You know, that's a state maintained sector. So that there is a differential there. Sorry, we should have made that clearer.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Wendy.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation, which echoes the excellent presentation which was given to the Scrutiny Commission last month. And as Scott has said previously, it's really good to see the improvements that have been made, whilst that the team recognise the improvements that are still required. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, I think that's all the questions. So thank you very much, guys, for that. And I look forward to you coming back actually in the future with even more improvements, and you know, and that curve going upwards on that journey. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
So
You're welcome.
So we move on to item 5, which is the Youth Justice Plan, and I'd like to welcome Debbie Lloyd. Yes, I have to. Yes, Debbie Lloyd. Welcome, Debbie.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Debbie Lloyd. I'm the Assistant Director for the Children and Family Support Services and the Youth Offending Service of the Children's Trust. I'm hoping that you've had chance to take a look over the papers. Obviously, I'm here today to just present to you the main issues around the Youth Justice Plan for us here in Northamptonshire. I think the plan is very, very detailed, and I think it gives you a lot of information, a lot of data, it also spells out the challenges as well that we have in Northamptonshire with our young people. I think our priorities for the plan are the right priorities. I think we know ourselves very, very well in relation to the children that we are currently supporting in the YOS, but also as we look ahead at the young people that have the potential to be coming through and need the support of the Youth Offending Service. You know, we are also doing that in working with the police and our other colleagues across other partner agencies as well. So I think it's fair to say the Youth Justice Plan has to obviously come through the relevant cabinet to be signed off. It's something that it must be cited, and it is a public document. And I think it's fair to say that you get this every year. It has to be done every year, and it doesn't give you an awful lot of time to demonstrate the progress that we have to achieve as well within a 12-month period. But I think it's fair to say, as I've tried to show in the charts that we put into the plan, that we are making progress, albeit we know we still have work to do, and we've kept our priorities and our sights on making sure that we do achieve this year on those priorities. I think we have a very good plan. We have a strong trajectory that is going to help us to get to where we want to be with this plan in place. And yeah, the team is stable. I think it's fair to say that with the new funds that have been made available to us, we're going to be able to strengthen our prevention and diversion work as well. So that's going to be really important to us. We've already strengthened our education offer. Because obviously education and training and employment is a key feature in the areas of the work that we need to focus on as well. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that where we are right now and the things that we need to do to build on the good work that we've currently done so far, yeah, this plan kind of speaks for itself in that respect, and there are some things. I mean, you'll see this plan very quickly again next year, and I'm hoping by then again you'll see a very positive trajectory of all the work that we've achieved as well. So yeah, I'm happy to take all inquiries and questions in relation to it, but I think in terms of first-time entrance into the criminal justice system, obviously that is improving. We have made good progress. That is a continued priority for us, and that is an area of work that we are focusing on prevention quite a lot. Our reoffending rate, whilst our reoffending rate looks high, it is a very small cohort of children that are making that impact, and it's that we need to address and look at. What is it, and that we're having the profile picture around those young people as to this reoffending and the types of reoffending that they're doing as well. So we are have lots of deep dive work into that. The priority around serious youth violence, that is a growing picture nationally. The issue around violence and young people and the types of violence that they get involved with is something that obviously all areas are looking at. It's quite significant. It's significant for us here, and probably one of the main reasons why our young people are being given court outcomes instead of out of court outcomes from the panel hearings. So yeah, and then we have obviously our overrepresentation of young people as well, which we have wrote a strategy on, and we have a bespoke action plan about the overrepresentation of young people who are being supported by the YOS and who are obviously committing crimes but also reoffending as well. And the Youth Justice Board also looked at that strategy and the plan around that, and have been very complimentary in relation to. They actually do believe we're ahead of the curve with this one, because we've grasped it very quickly, and we're working with that, working with it with the police, working with it with lots of training and development work with our partners about the recommendations of the plan. So those are our priority areas at the moment, alongside of the day job, making sure that all of the children that we're currently supporting now are supported well and receiving good interventions.
Thank you, Debbie. I think you're right. Absolutely, the report is packed full of data and statistics, and it takes a lot to read. And I think you're right. It is an annual thing. I remember doing it last year, and I know it's coming earlier next year, isn't it? So there's not a year in between the two reports, is it? So that's. But I think you're also right when you raise the point about when you have low numbers of statistics. And then you have an increase, it looks far worse than it actually is, isn't it? If you have a higher number, then it's a lower difference, if that makes sense. And I think sometimes people don't realise that and then just look at the huge increase when actually it could actually be only an increase of 2, and that could be 50-60% or something. So yeah, so it's a very good point, Debbie. Thank you. Do we have any Dorothy?
How many children do you actually look after who fit this cohort of reoffending?
The reoffending numbers, they are, if you just want to think about the reoffending numbers, they are low. We're probably talking about 38 children, actually. 38 children, but in those 38 children, the top 5 of them are creating the most reoffending. So for every child, every time the kids commit an offence, then it's counted. And so our top 5, they could potentially have about 24 offences, and every time it's counted. So and so you've got this small number that reoffend regularly, and this is what's raising the number. So we've been taking a very close look at our top 10 and top 5. We've looked at the 38, looked at the top 10, looked at the top 5, and we've looked at it from the principle of their age, their ethnicity, and any educational challenges. We've looked at it from where they live. We've looked at it from trauma. What's brought them to this point? Substance misuse, mental health. We've looked at it right across, so we get that kind of pen picture of these young people, and they do fit into that area of challenge where they're slightly older. They're 16 and 17. They're not the young ones. They are the slightly older ones. And you can see, there's been quite significant trauma in their lives. Well, their education achievement has been low throughout. Probably some of them haven't been to school or have been excluded from school and things like that. So you get a sense of who these young people are.
If the education, they're not attending school, are they going to schools which are basically for excluded children?
So, some of them will have specialist placements. They will be going to alternative provision. But some of them will also be on school rolls and expected to be attending school rolls. And some of them don't go and are not in any school because they're educated at home. And obviously some have been excluded and maybe challenges to get them back in. But there is certain themes there. I suppose that's what I'm saying. The pen picture is given a theme of things, and we've got to find new ways of helping these young people to find a better future. And I think our education and training offer is something that we've invested in to try and make sure that we do that moving forward.
There's somebody actually who's taught children in prison as well as being in secure units. Do we actually work with these children? The ones who are in secure units, do we work with them in this county?
Yes.
We do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All young people that belong to Lincolnshire that have an order of any type from the court, it's our responsibility to maintain our contact, and the intervention plan is whatever that young person needs. It doesn't matter where they are, whether they're in a resident, a youth offending institute, or whether they are in any other care arrangements. We have to support them, and that support has to be through their asset and support needs that have been identified, education would always be right up there in terms of ensuring that they are doing something educational.
And what are the police doing to help you?
The police have been really supportive. We have police officers in the youth offending service already, so they're helping with the prevention, but also some of the preparations in terms of the panels and the court, moving towards the courts and then the court orders. So we have police officers as part of the service anyway, but then we have the external partners in relation to police that are working with us, looking at the prevention side of things. So they're helping us to give us the names and looking at who is out there locally coming to the attention of officers most regularly, because if we can intervene early, that's exactly what we want to do.
And the prevention, is that done through Northants? Is that done through centrally? Is that done through Chief Constable?
The youth offending service is Northamptonshire, Western North. It covers all areas.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Debbie. Really good report. Actually, Chair, I have to say they're all good reports. Nice, and there's a lot of information contained in them, and they're nice and easy to read. Debbie, I'm going to show my complete naivety with this whole thing now. Really, I'm interested in. I asked the question because thinking about a small minority creating a lot of the problems. So in Raunds in Northamptonshire, there is at the moment daily antisocial behaviour. So we have a small group of children who every day for the last 3 or 4 weeks are breaking glass and gluing it to the children's slides so that the children cut themselves. So on Friday, a child was hospitalised, a young child. So at what stage do so there's 3 of them, 16, 17, 18 years old. At what stage does those children come to your attention? Are they referred by the police, or do the public refer it to them? Where do they come under your umbrella?
It will be through the police, obviously, because the police get the call outs, because of maybe some concerns being raised. But then there'll be obviously the public might have names that they give to the police as well, because they'll know these young people if they're living locally. But also because we work so closely with the Police Crime Commission and service offer, who have outreach youth. The outreach youth offer, it would be likely that kind of first port of call would be with the community safety, looking at the police crime commissioners to get their detached youth workers out there to have a look, see what they've gone on and see if they can do any diversion work. Okay, so that diversionary work really early to prevent those young people from coming in to the youth justice. We don't want them in there. We want the diversion work happening. But if they repeatedly were brought to the attention of the police, then it would be fair to say that the police PNNs, so the child's name goes into the police system is racking up these PNNs, and so then the police bring them to our attention to say, these young people, bit concerned about them, keep coming to our attention. These are the kind of things that they're doing. And is this something the youth offending service within their prevent and diversion area could be looking at them? But, that and again, with other support services, I have a youth offer myself within my service area, and the triaging of those young people to try and get them some support, and their families. Actually, do their families know where they are? Do their families know they're doing such awful things? I think it's the way that, and the police are very good at being involved in the first instance. But as soon as they come to our attention, then somebody within our prevention and deter area are going to be intervening as well. But that's kind of how it has to escalate. The youth offending service is a statutory service, and it's there to, you know, to support children who are going through the courts, but that's those that also have youth referral orders and community orders. So they've, for want of a better word, that, you know, they've tipped over the edge. But we want less of them. We want more of the diversion work going on and prevention.
Debbie, brilliantly explained. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's all the questions, Debbie. So thank you very much for that. And I will see you soon.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so we move on to item 6, which is the update on family hubs. And I think we've got Kirsty, haven't we? Hello, Kirsty, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm good, thank you.
Good, good.
Yes, would you like me to share the slides? I don't know if I have share access, but I've got some slides that I can share if that's helpful.
Yeah, Ben, are you able to?
I was just about to say, would you like me to share them for you, Kirsty?
Yes, please, Ben. That would be really kind. Thank you. So the slides are a brief update, but I will talk and give kind of context to some of the work that's also taken place as well. So I'll go through them quite quickly and give some time for questions, which hopefully will be helpful for everybody.
Yep.
Just waiting patiently. Sorry, Ben, we put you on the spot. Great, thank you. Yeah, next slide, please, Ben. Thank you. So just really quick context. So I was here a couple of months ago, and we have agreed to come back bi-monthly to provide updates. So just really quickly, we I think this was actually before the last meeting, we went to the June council exec, and they agreed that we were going to adopt the family hubs model. So I don't know if you recall from the last presentation, we were identified as one of the 75 local authorities nationally that would have an opportunity to access a 3-year transformation grant to deliver family hubs. So really great that that was agreed. Following on from that, in early August, we were provided the allocation of the funding. So there's a process now that we need to follow. So we were provided the allocation, and then the sign-up window opened a couple of weeks ago, and we had between now and the end of October to sign up to the programme. And that involved us kind of developing some high-level plans about how we're going to approach the transformation grant, and just some kind of context about Northants' approach to family hubs. Within that, there was also an opportunity to become trailblazers for a number of areas, which included parenting support, parent and infant relationships, and perinatal mental health. And the deadline for that was the 31st of August. So really pleased to confirm that we were able, with a bit of blood, sweat and tears, to get the Trailblazer completed and signed off by the 31st of August. So that's a proposal where additional funding will be attached if we're successful. I think nationally they're only looking at 15 Trailblazers, so it will be quite competitive, but I think it's really great that across the summer period we were able to bring sessions of up to 34 different partners to really pull together these proposals, and that's really really positive that so many people were keen to be part of this planning. We have also submitted our sign up for the programme, which will be reviewed, and we hope that means that will start to generate the funding that we need to get moving the pace of the programme. We are going to executive next week with a bit more detail around the funding, what the allocation for Northants is, and we are going with some very specific decisions. and that is to enable us to move at the pace. There is quite a lot of requirements attached to the grant, and there is an expectation that the grant is used within the financial year. So obviously for this year, we've already lost a bit of time, so just due to the delays of the allocation. So we are really keen to get moving as quickly as possible, and starting to make sure that children, young people and families benefit from this grant. Next slide, please. So just to give a reminder from the presentation last time, because I think this is really important, is the kind of, it's called kind of Family Hubs and Start for Life program. So the Family Hubs is that 0 to 19 up to 25 offer that I shared with you previously, and then within that there is really clear deliverables around how we ensure we deliver a Start for Life offer primarily for our younger children in the area. So thinking about, from a Family Hubs perspective, kind of access, connection, how we work together as professionals, thinking about our statutory services, and also the prevention element, so that kind of early identification prevention to reduce the pressure. Also thinking about how our voluntary organisations and statutory services work together. And then there's a key focus on relationships, which is not only for relationships around kind of parents and families, but also the relationships in the way that we work together in an integrated way. And then specifically for Start for Life, there's an expectation that there's a seamless support offer for our youngest children, so primarily children under 5, with a real focus with children under 2. That we use Family Hubs as an access point for services for our Start for Life offer, that there is access to really good information, both physically, virtually, digitally, and a real opportunity to innovate in that space. And then thinking about how our kind of workforce development, and it's not just about a workforce development within individual service areas, it's about how we develop a cohesive workforce to support the needs of families. And then really thinking about kind of how we continually improve and shape and flex the services that we deliver as a partnership, and then thinking about how we lead change. So as this is a transformation grant, we are expected to kind of evaluate, and that's something we're really keen, and I can go on to that in a moment, but how we evaluate from the beginning, which I think learning from other programs is maybe you kind of think you evaluate at the end, but actually it's about how we start evaluating from when we start, using research, and also thinking about how we use evidence-based practice. So just on this, what I wanted to add is there's been some really, really good partnership discussions already, and that are continuing around how we align some of the kind of other agendas for residents across North Hants, which include community place-based provision within a locality, and how actually we bring services together to support the needs of an area. So and really good discussions across the kind of system about how we develop that, so we genuinely build a single front door for families, and that they don't feel that they're having to be referred to multiple agencies, tell their story multiple times. Just to give an example, so that kind of partnership system development is something that we've seen really progress since I provided an update last time. Next slide, please. Thanks. So just a reminder of our approach, really going on what I've just said around the kind of partnerships. This is generally about bringing together local partners to think about the right conversation, the right time, enable to support families in the right way, and how we build relationships. So this isn't about a co-location of services in one building. This is about building a system of support for families. So wherever a family may land in their local setting, they are really clear on the offer and support for their family's needs. And that is, by 2025, we want every family saying that that's how they feel. So the approach we will take is a test and learn type model, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail. And really thinking how we co-produce locally, so that any hub area that we mobilise does genuinely meet local needs, and the expectation is that not all of the hubs will look and feel the same, because it has to be based on what local people need. So for an example, in East Northants, we know that the likelihood of a stronger outreach model versus maybe another area of the county, just because of the rurality of East Northants and the access to community assets. So that's just to give one example of how it may look different depending on each area. And so then building on foundations that we know are already there. So we are completing a number of kind of self-assessments that has started, and we've mobilised quite a number of partnership groups to assess where we think we are for Northants, and within that develop a partnership action plan. And some areas we've identified we want to move at pace, and some areas we feel are already quite strong. But actually, there's a few things we need to do just to make it excellent really quickly. And there's some areas that we know that we really need to focus on. Thinking about a kind of drivers for change, and we've started to socialise that already, and starting to develop a logic model, which I've got an example which is draft, and we're adding to that every time. And then just that clarity really that across all of this work, we are aligning the priorities around kind of the integrated care systems and also family help services. So broadening the support through the voluntary organisations, through commissioned services, and making sure that the priorities are aligned really, so that we're all working towards the same outcomes. So next slide, please. So I shared this last time, and I want to share it again. So within this, there is the expectation. So now we've signed up to the programme, there is an expectation that we need to submit a 3-year delivery plan, so how we're going to deliver the whole programme, by the end of December. So some parts of this work is absolutely is moving at pace. We have also identified some areas of challenge which the additional funding will enable us to address very, very quickly. So to give an example, things like around needs analysis, data, information, and we do have the opportunity to move some of that at pace now that we're signed up to the programme, which is really, really good. Really key part of the kind of next phase of this is the kind of co-production and engagement, and kind of using the data that we have to identify an area that we could prototype a hub, so a bit of a test and learn, and that's where we could have real local kind of engagement and co-production. We're also looking at opportunities to link into work, some of the work that was described earlier, so that we're not having multiple conversations with the same people, but we are utilising opportunities when there is engagement to also reach the views of local people about how best this could be delivered, and actually what would feel accessible for them. So next slide, please. Thank you. So yes, this very busy, colourful logic model, which I won't go through in detail, but you've got it in the slide deck. I think I wanted to share this just to show the amount of stuff in family hubs, and really the importance of, you know, our plan, our priorities, our shared outcomes, because all of what's in this, I think with any of the discussions we've had today, there is a part of this where family hubs will link the system together. So I wanted to share this to demonstrate this isn't just about a physical space that families will turn up to, and the next slide will show this kind of some of our ideas, but this is about what are the primary drivers, what are the needs, what are the interventions for our local families, and how can we as a locality, utilising assets and services, the community sector, to bring together a cohesive support under the banner of family hubs, which will be virtual, physical space, but also an outreach model. So I think I won't go through every part of this, but I just wanted to show the depth and breadth of what we're talking about when we talk about a system-wide transformation, and how we start to bring these services. So families generally are walking through a front door, This should start to feel like families aren't having to engage with all of these different services. One point I wanted to flag on this, which has really come out as part of the work, especially around kind of the early years area around perinatal mental health, is we really know that a priority for us is working with male carers and fathers, and more needs to be done with that. And I think we've started to think about really creative ways of doing that. And another part of the programme that we are required to do is think about how we engage with the LGBT plus community, especially again around kind of parenting support. And that's an area that there is a really good face-to-face session taking place next week, and hopefully the momentum will build for that. Just to flag a couple. Next slide, please. So this is my wonderful pretty picture that I keep changing and adding to. So so if you visualize, we are potentially aiming for 4 localities. I won't say it's 4 buildings, but 4 localities. What's really good is that a majority of services already work in the locality way, so kind of Kettering, Wellingborough, Corbury and East Northants. So for the co-location and integration of services, it's really positive that people are already working in those ways. Networks are already established, which I think puts us in a really good position. So the kind of principles that we're working towards is thinking about kind of physical co-location of services, so where people can be under one roof and delivering an integrated offer for families. Thinking about a kind of we come to you, so that's through family outreach, connector programs, and then how we meet in the middle, so that's your kind of digital and virtual offer. And then within this picture, we've got the front door in the middle, so again, that concept of one front door for families. And then within the kind of dark green, the ambition, and this is the ambition that we're engaging on, is that we have a co-location of these services, so kind of health visiting, school nursing, voluntary organisations, social care, strengthening families, community midwifery teams, early help support team, the SEND support team that reach out to schools, adult services, including kind of financial support, domestic abuse support, universal services that are delivered on site and out in the community. And the idea is that these services will be in a physical space together and also work in a kind of hub and spoke type way. And then on the outside, these are where if families go through the front door, they still will be connected. So for the concept is if they turn up to a library, they know the very clear pathway into the rest of the services. If they turn up to a GP, there's a clear pathway into the locality services. So wherever a family lands or chooses to land, the pathway into the support should feel and be the same, so that they don't have to talk to lots and lots of agencies to get the help they need. So that is the vision that we're working towards, and the hope is, you can stop sharing now, Ben, if that's okay. The hope is that we start to utilise the transformation grant. We're going to mobilise some things quite quickly, and aim to start to see a locality prototype very early in the new year in 2023, with a vision of having a family hub offer under the banner of family hubs by 2025 for all areas of North Northants.
Superb. Thank you very much, Kirsty, again for that fantastic report. It is. And it's really great to see when we first talked about it, and it wasn't that long ago actually that we first talked about it. It's great that you've hit those deadlines. Thank you very much for your team for doing that, because I know these deadlines are always tight, aren't they? And it's just kind of like, and it's fantastic, that we're moving forward with this, and there really is progress, and we can really see, actually the difference that this is going to make for a lot of families and a lot of children, and I particularly like the fact that you mentioned actually about male carers, because I think sometimes they kind of get lost within that as well, and it's really good that that you are putting a focus on that as well. So it's really exciting, and I'm really excited about this moving forward. So But I'm happy for anybody else to any questions or comments. Dorothy.
Yeah, my question is, whereabouts are these family hubs going to actually be? You say East, Northants, Wellingborough, Kettering, Corby, but where?
I'll answer that if you want, Kirsty. There's been no decision on places at the moment in actual where they're going to be. So there's been no decision made on that, Dorothy.
And how many people are you actually aiming this at?
Yeah, so what will be undertaken is a needs analysis, and that's started, and as I said, that's also been some of our challenge. So we will bring in additional resource to support with the needs analysis, but this is about access within the local community for all children and families aged 0 to 19 up to 25 of children with young people with SEND, and this will be an inclusive offer, so this will be accessible for all families that live within that area.
Well, I think, sorry.
So I was going to say, Dorothy, I think it's very hard to put a figure on it, as in, how many people, because some of this will be accessed remotely, which is great. COVID has taught us how to use technology moving forward, and those that come through the front door. So I think it's very difficult to be able to put a number on that.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just sort of asking from the point of view that do they have families lined up for it? That's what I was going to ask, really, in these areas, but you don't know at the moment.
Well, the concept is that the families will already be so to give an example, a family might already be accessing a service, and they might be accessing one service for their 1-year-old, one service for their 6-year-old, and one service for their 13-year-old, and having to speak to potentially 5 or 6 different professionals about their family. The idea is that yes, this will increase engagement, exactly that, but it will also it will start to support the professionals around the family rather than the families having to seek out the professionals. So this is about, those families may already access services, and we're wanting to make it more easier, but for those hidden families and families that find accessing services more difficult, that's why the virtual offer, as Councillor Edwards just described, and that self-serve and that self-help, but also outreach to really focus on those communities that we know still struggle to engage with services, and our services are hard to engage with.
Lastly, how much money is the government giving to this?
For Northants?
Yeah.
So the range for Northants is between, so it's still a range at this stage on variance, but across a 3-year programme, it's 3.9 to 4.1 million over the 3 years.
Thank you.
Superb. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? No, that's superb, Kirsty. Thank you very much once again for that. And again, I look forward to you coming back in maybe 4 months' time or something, maybe next year now, to see the developments within that. And that's really excited about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we move on to item 7, which is the forward plan, Ben.
Thank you very much. Share my screen with you. Can you all see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good. So all 3 items to this meeting are going forward through to the executive, and then we don't have any further items scheduled at the moment for the executive as we go forward. So if you're happy, Chair, I shall move straight on to item 8.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Ben.
Okay. So in respect of item 8, our forward list of agenda items, we did have a good discussion on this at the last meeting, and we do now have most of our meetings in the coming months have some good substantive items. So the next meeting on the 3rd of October, we have it's down here as briefing on the school appeals process. It should, I will amend that to say briefing on the school admissions and appeals process. And as a reminder, we will be inviting all councillors to attend that meeting, because in the past we have provided all councillor briefings, and it was felt it would be useful to provide a briefing to the EAP and all councillors at the same time. And we've already done a similar thing with EAP on climate change in respect of green waste, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the right. I think it's the right thing to do, Ben, in that, you know, I get a lot of questions from other members about appeals, and in fact the whole process of applying for a school and things. So
yes, it's it'll be in your intros, won't it, over the autumn?
Yes, yeah.
We've also got the update on the educational psychologist service, and update on school improvement. At the moment, we've got no items on the 25th of October. However, we do have 6 items not currently scheduled. So I propose to go through that with Anne-Marie when she returns from leave, and also yourself, Chair. So perhaps if we get 2 or 3 of those items into the 25th of October meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think we can move some of those forward, to the 20th of October. That's,
thank you. 22nd of November meeting. We're scheduled to have a further update on send progress, further update on the family hubs that we received today, and then we've got updates on early childhood provision and the virtual school annual report.
So I might, Ben, I mean, I'll speak to you and Anne-Marie afterwards, but I might move the Family Hub one on a month.
Okay.
It's not that long between now and beginning of November, is there? So, and possibly the send actually as well. And like you say, there are a couple of other substantive items there that, yes, yeah. So we could move those on a little bit.
Okay. But yeah, so we've got quite a substantive list of items coming through to you over the coming months. I don't know if there's at the moment any other items which members would also like to see on the work programme.
Is there any news on Albert Street?
So that was going to, I think it's the.
It went to exec end of August for the second consultation. Yes, so it's on the second consultation at the moment, Dorothy. In fact, that started Monday of this week.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So that will come back to you.
Right.
Yep. Okay. And then we've got,
as ever, you know, if anybody has got any other items that they'd like to include, just drop me an email, and we can add them on. It's not a problem.
I was thinking of gifted children.
Gifted children.
Yes, children who got a special.
Yeah, no, yeah. What would you like to know?
Well, I would like to see if there's any way, if a child has a particular talent, say for instance in music, then they would probably go over to Northampton School for Girls. But you know, at the moment there is no funding for them to go to these schools, transport funding. So I'm wondering how we can help them. Also, we might have an interest in maths.
Okay, I mean, I think it's quite difficult to write a report on that.
Okay.
But we can certainly, Dorothy, we certainly can look at in what we can do to support. So leave that one with me.
Okay.
And as ever, Dorothy, I will come back to you on that one.
Right, thank you.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
The announcement's just been made, so I'm afraid I think we need to stop the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
To let you know.
thank you, members. We will end the meeting.